Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, AGNDD, Intelli Report topic. Scott Adams, creator of the satirical Dilbert comic strip, dies at 68. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this partially AI-generated article-based video. Scott Adams, creator of the satirical Dilbert comic strip, dies at 68. His chronicles of a corporate cubicle dweller was widely distributed until racist comments on his podcast led newspapers to cut their ties with him. By Richard Sandomir, New York Times, January 13, 2026, updated 3:04 p.m. ET. Scott Adams, whose experience as a bank and phone company middle manager gave him the material to create the comic strip Dilbert, a daily satire of corporate life that became a sensation, but was dropped by more than 1,000 newspapers after he made racist comments on his podcast in 2023, died on Tuesday at his home in Pleasanton, California, in the Bay Area. He was 68. His former wife, Shelley Adams, confirmed his death, saying he had been receiving hospice care. Mr. Adams announced in May that he had aggressive prostate cancer and that he probably had only a few months to live. For more than 30 years, Dilbert chronicled the absurdities of the high-tech workplace and skewered management. The title character was a frustrated engineer working from a cubicle at a high-tech company whose intelligent anthropomorphic pet, Dogbert, dreamed of world domination. Other characters included Dilbert's co-workers, Alice, Asoc, and Wally, the hapless, pointy-haired boss, and Catbert, the fire-red-colored cat and evil head of human relations. At its peak, Dilbert was syndicated to about 2,000 newspapers internationally, placing it in the realm of other popular syndicated strips like Peanuts, Doonesbury, and Garfield. Mr. Adams also published numerous Dilbert collections and wrote business books, including The Dilbert Principle, which posits that the most ineffective workers are systematically moved to the place where they can do the least damage: management. The strip also led to production of a short-lived animated TV series, plush Dilbert dolls, computer games, and the Dilburrito, a frozen vegetarian burrito, which flopped in supermarket sales after a few years. Dilbert himself was the star of a $30 million advertising campaign for Office Depot in 1997. One of the reasons for his success was that he was the first one to have an office-based strip with recurring characters people could identify with, like Alice, a really smart woman who never got attention or praise, Alan Gardner, the editor of the Daily Cartoonist website, said in an interview. Mr. Adams suggested that Dilbert gave voice to isolated cubicle dwellers. "That's the amazing thing I found when I went online a couple of years ago," he told the New York Times in 1995. "I heard from all these people who thought that they were the only ones, that they were in this unique, absurd situation, that they couldn't talk about their situation because no one would believe it." Over the years, Mr. Adams made remarks about women and Jews that brought him negative attention outside the silo of beloved cartoonist. He used his podcast, Real Coffee with Scott Adams, to offer free-flowing commentary on the news, a platform that led to the comic strip's downfall. In February 2023, he was discussing a new Rasmussen Reports poll that found that only 53% of Black Americans agreed with the statement, "It's okay to be white," a phrase that has been promoted by white supremacists, according to the Anti-Defamation League. If nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to the poll, that's a hate group, and I don't want to have anything to do with them, he said on the podcast episode. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give white people is to get the hell away from black people. In the podcast, he also said that he had previously identified as black because I like to be on the winning team, and that he had sought to help the black community. But after reading about the Rasmussen poll, he said he would re-identify as white. The blowback came swiftly. Many major newspapers, including the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, the Los Angeles Times, and the New York Times, in its international print edition, dropped Dilbert. So did the USA Today network, which at the time had more than 200 newspapers. Soon after, Andrews McMeel Universal, which by then was syndicating Dilbert to about 1,400 newspapers, cut its ties to Mr. Adams. So did the business imprint of Penguin Random House, one of the world's largest publishers, which dropped plans to release his semi-humorous advice book Reframe Your Brain. Mr. Adams self-published it later that year. Mr. Adams defended himself on a subsequent podcast, saying that he was not a racist, and that he had been using hyperbole when he called blacks a hate group. He acknowledged that his comments had damaged his career. "Most of my income will be gone by next week," he said. "My reputation for the rest of my life is destroyed. You can't come back from this, am I right?" He quickly resurrected Dilbert as Dilbert Reborn and made it available by subscription on the local subscription platform. Scott Raymond Adams was born on June 8, 1957 in Windham, New York, in the Catskill Mountains. His father, Paul, was a postal worker. His mother, Virginia Vining Adams, was a real estate broker and an assembly line worker. In a quiet household where Scott was the middle child, he was a wisecracker. "The cynical part of me comes from my dad," Mr. Adams told the San Francisco Chronicle in 1998. "I don't know whether he's had a serious thing to say about anything as long as I've known him." Scott wanted to be a cartoonist from age 5. But when you reach an age when you understand likelihood and statistics, you lose that innocence that anything is possible, he told the Times in 2003. So he took a business path. He graduated in 1979 from Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York, with a bachelor's degree in economics. He went to work that year as a teller at Crocker National Bank in San Francisco, but because of dyslexia, he had trouble balancing his totals. He also was twice robbed at gunpoint, he said. After sending his boss a memo on how to run the bank better, he was sent to a management training program and rose to managerial positions while also completing an MBA from the University of California, Berkeley in 1986. Dilbert emerged during dull meetings at Crocker when he sketched cartoons of his co-workers and bosses, he said. Colleagues faxed them around the bank. The Dilbert character's simply drawn but distinctive look was based on a co-worker who had an interesting potato-shaped body that was fun to draw, Mr. Adams told Publishers Weekly in 2008. Dilbert's lack of social skills is modeled on my own personality. His professional skills are a composite of engineers I have known. He left for Pacific Bell in 1986 and 2 years later sent samples of the nascent strip to cartoon syndicates. United Feature Syndicate agreed in 1989 to distribute Dilbert, initially to 35 newspapers. He stayed at Pacific Bell until 1995, when writing and illustrating Dilbert became his full-time job. The success of Dilbert gave Mr. Adams a platform to comment on a wide range of topics on his blog and podcast. Some of his views drew intense criticism. On his blog in 2006, he questioned whether the figure of 6 million Jewish deaths in the Holocaust was accurate or a big number that someone pulled out of his ass. 5 years later, also on his blog, he wrote that women are treated differently by society for exactly the same reason that children and the mentally handicapped are treated differently. It's just easier this way for everyone. In 2015, he gave Donald J. Trump, then a New York real estate businessman and former reality TV star, a 98% chance of winning the next year's presidential election based on his powers of persuasion. His complete ignoring of facts are actually part of the persuasion because he doesn't give you targets, he doesn't give you details of his policies usually, Mr. Adams said on the HBO current events comedy show Real Time with Bill Maher in 2016 before the presidential election. So he's reducing the number of targets while making you feel good and focus on the things he wants. Mr. Adams wrote, "Win Bigly, Persuasion in a World Where Facts Don't Matter," 2017, a book about President Trump's power to persuade. It has a cover illustration of Dilbert wearing a Trumpian head of hair. The book earned him an invitation to the White House to meet the president. Apparently, my book win bigly made a big impact on his advisors and he wanted to chat, Mr. Adams said in a direct message on Twitter. I picked 98% as my prediction because the statistician Nate Silver of the forecasting website 538.com was saying 2%, he wrote in the book, referring actually to Mr. Silver's forecast for who would become the Republican presidential nominee. I did that for branding and persuasion purposes. It's easier to remember my predictions both because of the way it fits with Silver's prediction and for its audacity, which people perceived as wrongness. He said his support for Mr. Trump in 2016 proved costly. When I decided that I would throw away my entire social life to back Trump, and when I eventually threw away my entire career, which even before I was canceled, my licensing business and book sales went to almost nothing, because I was supporting Trump, he said on his podcast in October 2025. I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my social life. I sacrificed my career. I sacrificed my reputation. I may have sacrificed my health. And I did that because I believed it was worth it. In November, he wrote on the social media platform X that his health was declining fast and that his insurer had not scheduled a time to administer a cancer drug, Pluvicto, which it had approved. He asked for help from President Trump. On it, the president responded on his social media outlet, Truth Social. Mr. Adams later confirmed on social media that he would be getting the drug, but that its use had to be postponed because of scheduled radiation treatment. His marriages to Shelley Miles and Christina Basham ended in divorce. He is survived by his stepchildren, Hazel, Marin, and Savannah, as well as his siblings, Cindy and Dave. Another stepchild, Justin Miles, died of a fentanyl overdose in 2018. In a 2025 Dilbert Reborn strip, Dilbert is confronted by a character named COVID Carl, whose identity revolves around his refusal to get COVID shots. The character says that he will judge the credibility of what Dilbert says based on his vaccination history. Dilbert: it looks like we're getting some rain today. COVID Carl, angrily: you're wrong about the weather because you got the COVID jab. Stop believing everything the government tells you, fool. Ash Wu contributed reporting. Richard Sandomir, an obituaries reporter, has been writing for The Times for more than 3 decades. A version of this article appears in print on January 14, 2026, Section B, page 10 of the New York edition with the headline, Scott Adams, whose Dilbert-skewered cubicle culture dies at 68. Comments? Jim, Pennsylvania, 3H ago. Dilbert was a truly great comic strip. Scott Adams was a truly flawed person. I mourned the demise of the comic strip, but not its creator. There you have it. SLC, 3H ago. R.I.P., dear sir. Your comic strip Dilbert gave a great many of us the humor we needed as we were faced with stresses during work and autocratic or out-of-touch bosses or management decisions during outsourcing, downsizing, and the roller coaster of economics focused on short-term profits rather than long-term growth of products, markets, customers, and technical superiority or improvement. It saddens me that we have become so fractured that we can't tolerate a tiny misstep or even a statement that might be somewhat offensive. As humans, we have the ability to repent and improve, which seems essential because most, if not all of us, are imperfect and make errors in both statements and beliefs. And myself, for one, have experienced times when my motives were misconstrued and so taken as offensive rather than just in error. And that seems to be most dangerous when racial boundaries are dividing us as a people instead of those differences giving us the strength of different viewpoints and varied cultural heritage. Comedy is essential, I think, for us all to deal with the challenges of life and the problems we have collectively and individually on a daily basis. E-engineer and Army aviator near Austin, 3H ago, I and my co-workers were massively flattered by Scott's panel lampooning the status of having multiple computer displays, a phenomenon which occurred substantially because of the creative technical work of myself, a friend DG, and about a dozen seriously good software engineers. That one panel was a better reward than the recognition we received otherwise. Thank you, Scott and RIP. Eddie, Olympia, 3H ago. I knew Scott from his days at Crocker Bank. While I wasn't aware of his cartooning interests, I enjoyed his humor when we chatted. In reading Dilbert over the years, it seemed like he was a fly on the wall in our meetings, as having an uncanny sense of predicting my company's HR policy changes. Fred Flintstone, West Coast, 3H ago. He who is without sin can cast the first stone. RIP. S. Boston, 0.3H ago. When I was in high school in the early 1990s, one of my friends wrote Scott Adams a fan appreciation letter because Dilbert was one of our favorite cartoons. Its absurdist humor fit in with our comic sensibilities. See also Far Side, Bloom County, and Calvin and Hobbes. He responded by mailing back a handwritten thank you note and a small personalized drawing. We were floored that a syndicated cartoonist would take the time to do this. The world seemed much kinder and smaller then. This is the version of him that I like to remember. Mark Allen, Birmingham, Michigan, 3H ago. Scott Adams' humor helped me get through some tough times in my corporate management position. His comic strip and books gave me comfort that I'm not alone trying to survive the corporate machine. I had several of his strips up in my office. His wit and insight was always comic relief for the stress and frustration of corporate America. I was disappointed the direction he took later in life, but it was his life to live. RIP Scott Adams. Live music lover, America, 3H ago, two great Dilbert moments. 1. Dilbert talking to his garbage man. BTW had a master's degree from MIT. How can I make my job more interesting? Garbage man. That's easy. Get married to a woman who talks too much, then have a couple of kids. Last frame, garbage man says, you'll be amazed how much more interesting your job will become. 2. The character Topper. I have met a few dozen toppers in my lifetime. No matter what you say, they beat it. One time I got a guy to admit he played D1 lacrosse at Duke and D1 basketball at UVA. Topper is the best. Robert Rocktus, Scotland, 3H ago. BBQ'd for truthfulness and calling them as he saw it. My favorite was when a character out of Greenus decided to use no animal products in his daily life. He showed the next day naked. Robert Blickwadell, Elma, New York, 3H ago. Engineers and people with the knack around the world are sad today. Scott Adams through Dilbert clearly explained what kept us going and the forces that tried to keep us down. Rest in peace. Ernie, Old Bridge, New Jersey, 3H ago. I too was a cube rat, a techie. Someone gave me a desktop Dilbert calendar with a cartoon for each day of the week. Loved it. Santa Barbara, California, 3H ago. I worked as an engineer at a series of startups and we enjoyed Dilbert. Adams best captured our attitude as engineers that we were doing the real work, while managers, HR people, marketing people, and salespeople were an annoyance at best and an obstacle at worst. Adams was probably not very politically aware. His initial view of Trump was probably not support, just a perceptive awareness that Trump was good at persuasion. It seems that he only became a Trump supporter after he was attacked. It is all very sad. I think Adams was creative and perceptive in a certain domain, and woefully ignorant when it came to governance, history, and politics. It is too bad he was canceled, but he really went out of his way to make outrageous statements about matters like the Holocaust. One more observation, that Dilbert cartoon series was excellent. Does anyone know why that was canceled? Rich G., Montreal, 3H ago. His wit and humor will be remembered long after mediocre cartoonists' output is forgotten. He skewered the absurdities of modern life regardless of where they came from. His detractors not surprisingly continue to smear him. See above. Joplin, Missouri, 3H ago. In 1995, I was moved into a factory office job, which was very dysfunctional. Two things at the time were especially relevant to me: the Drew Carey Show and the daily Dilbert strip. Into the early 00s, Dilbert documented coping with inept, unqualified management, corporate greed, the evils of human resources, and general chaos in corporate America. But the Atom seemed to lose his way, and I'd stopped the strip in the mid-2010s. His embrace of MAGA-type rhetoric was disappointing, and the man pretty much wrecked his career publicly in amazing crash-and-burn fashion.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD Intelli report, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.